We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
Hello, and welcome once again to another fantastic Tuesday. My name is Tyrone Glover, and I am coming to you live from Yonkers, New York. I am your dress down CEO. No more bow ties, no more suit and tie. I'm giving it to you live, straight, with no chaser, right here as I do always. So I want to thank everybody for making the time. We don't take time anymore. We make that time to come, get that knowledge, get that understanding. I said it before, and I'm going to constantly keep saying it. My job is to provide you with information. What you do with that information is going to be up to you. My lane is the financial lane. So this is why we call this Leverage Your Score, because my job is to make sure that we help you get to where you want to be financially. But today, I'm going to have to address something that's been in the news, that's been out there for a little while. And I know as much as we should not be having the conversation, we need to have the conversation because people are putting it out there. And I think it's important that we talk about it. So I'm encouraging and I'm asking all leaders, African-American leaders, all of you who have a platform where you can put that face out there into the audience. We need messengers who can set the record straight. We're not about arguing. We're not about yelling and screaming and fighting and fussing and doing all that. We're setting the record straight. Setting the record straight. I don't care who said what. I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, a liberal, a conservative, an independent. None of that matters to me any longer. I'm removing myself from the political discussion, and I'm going right to the facts. The facts of why we should be talking to each other versus yelling and screaming and finding fault or pointing fingers at each other. So today's conversation is going to tie into what my lane is, which is, as I stated always, credit. I am that credit guy. If you got financial issues related to credit and you need some help, you need to start reaching out to me because I am that person. I know it better than those who set up the institutions, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, MyFICO. None of these guys, they refuse to make it to my platform. They refuse to come out and correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously I must be right. But I'm still going to always extend the invitation to them. Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, MyFICO. If you are a credit reporting agency, if you are someone who's giving information over to the credit reporting facilities, step out of your silos and come out into the public and let us know how you're actually helping. Because to be honest with you, everything that I've read is not a help. It's not a help. But as I stated today, it's not really, we're going to dive into it a little bit, but we're going to really primarily jump into this conversation about, and let me bring it on in. Let me bring it on into why we should not be having this conversation, but yet we are. Okay? Why we should not be having this conversation, but yet we are. Slavery did not benefit Black people nor slaves. There it is. I said it. I said it. We got to tell the unvarnished truth about what conversation we're having. And it's just that simple. It is just that simple. If you are, I'm going to say it again, if you are a intellectual, black, male, female, child, someone who can articulate in a manner in which it's going to be received. Don't get into the nonsense about those who, no, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. You're a channel for information. Be that channel for information and leave all the nonsense. Because to be honest with you, this was a conversation that doesn't need to be had, but I'm glad that we're having it all because of a word, a specific word that was used, benefit, benefit. And as I said, my brother and I had a conversation, and I asked him, I said, he was, oh, well, who said benefit? Was it a Democrat? Was it a Republican? I don't care who said benefit. I don't care. We just need to educate ourselves. We need to go back to when they first started teaching civics, which was in the 4th grade. They gave you a little bit introduction into it, which in pre-K to 2nd. They helped you out a little bit in the 3rd, but in that 4th grade is when they really started diving into the content of civics, slavery, U.S. government. And some of you need to go back to that understanding. Because I can tell you, as I was telling my brother, I am someone who grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s. We were taught something different compared to the children who are now not even receiving, not even this much when it comes to civics, when it comes to history, when it comes to understanding. And as I lay out some of these slides that you're going to be able to view, I want you to really start thinking about that time frame. If you're a grandparent, if you're an uncle, if you're a brother or a sister, depending on the age gap between you and your siblings, did you learn something that they did not learn? Are the kids now today, and I'm a teacher, been teaching for 7 years, and what they're teaching in school, that brief little moment that they talk about Black history, or they talk about history in general, they're leaving a lot out. They're leaving an extremely a lot out. But as I stated, we're going to go through it a little bit. We're going to touch on some subjects that might be a little bit challenging for some, and it might be a bit questionable for others, but that's okay. As I stated, information. The more information you have, the better you are supposed to be doing. All right? So if you don't know the 1619 Project, I would strongly recommend Hannah Nicole Jones. I would strongly recommend that you go and you look up this book. It's an Audible, it's a book, you can read it, you can listen to it. It has helped me with developing a lot more understanding about what transpired during a certain percentage of our existence on this planet. 400 years after enslaved Americans were first brought to Virginia, most Americans still don't know the full story of slavery. And that's, again, sad. Sad. We were the first original stock market. Okay? Blacks, slaves, the first original bidding on us. Prices up, down, depending on your strength, again, the quality or the quantity of whom and what you were. The names that they gave us, all based off of what we now hear today. Bulls buy, the bears sell. Bulls buy, the bears sell. Started right here 400 years ago, and we still have the story incorrect. I'm not going to correct it today, but what I am going to do is I'm going to give you something that you can build upon, and I hope that you do that. I hope that you educate within that household, because that's where it's going to really take shape. The academic facilities that we already know, some states do, some states don't, but it should be kind of a mandatory thing that they all do. Academics should not have a political, they should not have a political tie into it for no reason. Let's get these kids what they need so that they can go out into society and do what they should be doing. Because if you start removing or forgetting about, you're guaranteed to repeat it. All right, but we still don't know the full true story. And the 1619 project will hopefully, at least for me, it has done what I needed it to do. And I'm hoping that by me presenting it or sharing it with you, it will do the exact same thing for you. All right. So why we are committing educational malpractice. Why slavery is mistaught and worse in American schools. All right. Educational malpractice. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing when it comes to the well-being of our students. K through 12, I've said it already when it comes to the financial aspect of life. We're not doing. So when it comes to the history, we're doing exactly the same thing, omitting, removing, deleting what we need to really be reinforcing so we don't do and commit the same atrocities. Unlike math, reading, states are not required to meet academic content standards for teaching social studies and United States history. Why? Why? It's the same thing when it comes to financial literacy and financial intelligence. Why do we not educate or teach our kids the basics in all schools? Every single one. It doesn't matter whether you're in New York or whether you're in Texas or whether you're in Washington or whether you're in Florida, Midwest, Central, West Coast, East Coast, doesn't matter. Can we get one standard for education where it says that we're going to make sure that all of our kids have the basics? The basics. And it's going to start equally at home. Can we also agree that at the home front, at home, we start equally initiating some forms of self-education? If the academic facilities, for whatever reason, can't seem to get their heads out of their rectums, then it's up to us, parents, uncles, aunties, grandparents, caregivers, loved ones, to start really looking back and going, okay, hold on here. I don't want to get into the garbage of why we're having the conversation, but I really would like to focus on the information so that our children grow up well-rounded. White kids shouldn't feel any lesser than black kids. Black kids shouldn't feel any lesser than brown kids. Brown kids shouldn't feel any lesser than Asian kids. Asian kids shouldn't feel any lesser than Middle Eastern kids. If you live in these United States, we need to get on one accord. That means that there are no consensus on the curriculum around slavery, no uniform recommendation to explain the institutions that were debated in the crafting of the Constitution, and that has influenced nearly every aspect of American society since. We got to get on one accord for the very reason, if we do not, we are guaranteed to repeat. And we are one political cycle away from autocracy. Some of us are even one political cycle, one paycheck away from homelessness. This all ties in together. The absence of creates what we now are dealing with. Those who do not have sufficiently to meet or make ends meet. All because of this right here. Having conversations that are unnecessary. But if we're going to have them, then by all means, we need to have them so that it's correcting. Let me rephrase that, because correcting is not necessarily the best word. So that it's educating, enhancing, giving you the skills and the knowledge, not to get into further arguments and misunderstandings with, but to direct the content so that the individual can enlighten someone to whether or not they are so off. And if you're that far off, then you need some enlightenment. But as I said, this is what this day is for today. It's to really start honing in on you, the parents, you, the academic professionals, you, the articulate, well-spoken individuals, Black, whites, Hispanics, Middle Eastern, doesn't matter. You need to start doing a little bit more to make sure that these things do not fail. that they don't slip and continue to keep falling more and more by the wayside. Florida might be doing an excellent job, but to omit things to satisfy or to make someone not feel a certain way, that's not how we do things. So do U.S. high schools teach civics? And here you are. All 50 states have Social Security standards, which include civics and government. So that's nice to know that you have a standard. How much of that standard are you adhering to? That again begs to differ. 39 states require at least one course in government civics. Great, nice. 21 states require a mandated Social Security test, which is a decrease from 2021, which was 34 states. So as you can see right here, this in itself is showing you how we're taking away versus adding to. As I said, all 50 states. So 39 states that require at least one course, that should have said 50 states. The 21 states required a state minimum Social Security test, that should have equally said 50 states. In one area of consensus should be academics. And if we can't agree there, then we're going to have a serious problem everywhere else. And that's why we have this problem today with everything that we do. We can't agree on absolutely nothing. But when it comes to academia, we should be not that far apart. Let's give our kids what they need so that they can grow up and be decent, understanding citizens, have the abilities to do. Let's not just create workers. Let's create entrepreneurs. Let's create doctors. Let's create nurses, firefighters, police officers. Let's create individuals like myself who grew up in the foster care system and still turned out to be one of the most, at least in my opinion, and also those who call me the expert, one of the most influential individuals when it comes to financial literacy and financial intelligence, because that's what it's all about for me. Making sure that you, not only you, but also those that you care for, those that you love, those that you say, I'm going to do everything in my power to give you what you need. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you. And we need to make sure that these standards increase, not decrease or start getting omitted, all because of these adults, not children, but adults who have an issue. Because the children just want to learn. Based off my 7 years of what I've been able to undertake within school, children just want to learn. That's all they want to do. They want to learn. They want to have a safe place to go. They don't want to be feared. They don't want to have bullying. They want to have a safe place and space to go where they can socialize with their peers and also socialize with adults who are going to help them navigate the complexities of what life is already throwing at them at such a vulnerable, tender age. And we as adults are doing nothing but creating more and more problems. So why is civics no longer taught in school? Why? Why would you not want individuals to understand where they come from, what their history is, how we came about to be a nation? Why would you not want that? Civics education has been neglected for several reasons, but among the most prominent are civics and histories being squeezed out of the excessive force or out by excessive forces on reading and math, educators lacking an in-depth knowledge of our history and domestic ideas and practices. How? Is it that we didn't want to educate our kids? Why would we have a lack in these depth knowledges? So I asked the states, Democratic states, why is it that you, of all states, and I've come to find out that a lot of these Democratic states that start off or have a governor or have a few elected officials that are prominent Democrats, but those underlining concerns that are in these cities within these states, you got a lot of Republican underlining circumstances in Democratic states. You got individuals who have changed their parties in the middle of, get elected under one party, but then 6 months, a year or two later, you're switching your party because of your ideology? I don't think so. I don't think so. That was all a facade. But we need to do better. We need to find out why we're being squeezed out by excessive forces on reading and math. Social studies, history, reading, that's part of. Why would we not want our kids to understand, as they're learning how to read, the importance of what history teaches them from opening those books? STEM, can you help me out? STEM, can you help me with understanding why you don't teach financial literacy? Can you help me out also understanding STEM, why you don't teach Black history, U.S. history, civics in the manner in which you do the reading and the math? So again, we got to do better. And the fear of being embroiled in controversial issues. Fear of, we live in a state, or we live in a country that we are constantly in a perpetual state of fear. Think about your wages. Again, this all ties in. Think about your wages. I told you, I'm a money guy. I always love to be able to connect the dots. You are so afraid to go to your boss and ask your boss for an increase in salary. You're afraid to go to anyone and say, I need some assistance. We'd rather struggle because of the, again, controversial issues. If we don't get better, it's only going to get worse. If we don't get better, we as the people, have been removed from the very institution that we give our elected officials the control to, again, represent us. Because there's too many of us, obviously, so we need a representative. But when you start getting numbers like 80%, 70%, and 60%, even if it goes 2 or 3% over the 50, that's still a majority. And people rule, not elected officials. So this is, again, another civics lesson that elected officials need to go back to and revisit the Constitution, revisit their roles, because clearly they don't understand their roles. If 60, 70, 80% of a population is saying, oh, we want universal health care, or we want abortion rights for women, or we want individuals to be able to vote, and you got those numbers that high, how is it that an elected official can come and say, well, you know what? That's not what the people want. And this is what we have currently, because we don't know enough about our history to challenge elected officials. I wish a McCarthy would. I wish a Kevin McCarthy would say some off-the-wall baloney that he says to these reporters, because Kevin McCarthy would get an earful. I wish what's his name, a Lindsey Graham or a Ted Cruz would attempt to say something to me. And I can't wait to make my appearance at some point in Congress to be able to tell these degenerates about themselves. Yes, degenerates, deplorables. You don't have any power. We, the elected, we, the individuals, we, the people, give you the power. And now we, the people, will snatch it back from you. Keep thinking, Mr. Abbott, that you got more say-so than you think. Keep thinking, Mr. DeSantis, that you got more say-so than you think. Keep thinking, and I'm going to throw it out there because Mr. Scott, who's running for president under the GOP, you are the saddest representation of Blacks ever. Well, I wouldn't say ever, but at least current. So good luck with your 10% or your 11%. You still ain't helping us. So good luck with supporting an individual that you already said that you would pardon because you don't know your civics well enough, sir. So what does a traffic jam in Atlanta have to do with segregation? Quite a lot. Quite a lot. And when I fill you in on this, you're going to think back and you're going to go, wow, this dude has really done his work. But that was my job. My job was to go out. It was to, again, find some really key points that would bring you closer to wanting to know more about what goes on in your state, what goes on in your community, what goes on with you. Your day-to-day is affected by these conversations because they're not doing the work that they should be doing, rather than having a conversation about things that are irrelevant, studying again, researching, analyzing things that we've already. I'm 57 years old and I don't need anyone to study more about wages. You're either going to pay someone good or you're not going to pay someone good. You're either going to give someone insurance or you're not going to give someone insurance. But don't be surprised. You're either going to make sure that individuals have, or you're going to have high turnovers, or you're going to have high shortage, or you're going to have low participation. We don't need to study this any longer. We already know the root cause. And the root cause is lack of education, lack of the basics of what you should and need to know. So what does a traffic jam in Atlanta have to do with segregation? Atlanta has some of the worst traffic in the United States. Drivers there average 2 hours each week in gridlock, hung up at countless spots from the constantly clogged Georgia 400 to a complex cluster of overpasses by the Tom Moreland interchange, better known as the Spaghetti Junction. The downtown connection, a 12 to 14 lane mega highway that in theory connects the cities north to itself, regularly has 3-mile-long traffic jams that last for hours or for 4 hours or more. Commuters might assume that they're stuck there because some city planner made a mistake, but the heavy congestion actually stems from a great success in Atlanta. As a dozen of cities across America's daily congestion is directly consequences of a century-long effort to segregate the races. So here we are thinking, oh, they're building these massive intersections and weaving them through, but in all actuality, there was a deceptive plan to keep individuals segregated. Again, do your history, folks. Go back and learn some stuff. Stop getting it washed. And I could say whitewashed or blackwashed or brownwashed or whatever. Stop washing down, diluting your knowledge. For what? To appease whom? The thing that we should be doing now is correcting those who are getting it completely wrong, because we're electing these individuals. We're putting them in state houses where they're going to, again, 60, 70, 80% of the people are saying, I want X, Y, and Z. And your elected officials going in there and saying, hey, guess what? I don't care what you want, citizen of color. I don't care what you want, female. I don't care what you want, 18-year-old or 17-year-old who now has turned 18. You get the right to vote. You get to use your college ID on campus to vote. This is what's going on. And it's all because we're not diving into our history. We know nothing about our states, our cities, our municipalities in the manner in which we should. For much of the nation's history, the campaign to keep African Americans in their places, socially and politically, manifested itself in an effort to keep them quiet literally in one place or another. Before the Civil War, white masters kept enslaved African Americans close at hand to conserve their labor and guard against revolt. But with the abolition of slavery, the spiritual relationship or the spatial relationship with was reversed. Once they had no need to keep constant watch over African Americans, white wanted them out of sight. Civic planners pushed them into ghettos, and the segregation we know today became the rule. Sad. But again, now when you look at highways and byways and pass-throughs and underpasses and things of that nature. Things seem so nice on the outskirts, but in those inner cities, infrastructure. Why didn't we focus on infrastructure in the manner in which we should have always been focusing on infrastructure? Building up, rebuilding up. Why are we having, again, we're talking about 100-year floods and 100-year this. Well, we knew that erosion and things were going to happen. Why didn't we make sure? Why are we still seeing in the same areas flooding? Same areas, always, every single time, every snowstorm, every rain, every wind, every whatever it may be, natural disaster. And we clearly know through climate change that these disasters are getting worse. But what are we doing, or what have we been doing to increase or enforce or reinforce those infrastructure areas that always seem to have the same outcome every single time there is some form of a rain or snow or heat? Heat is now the new silent killer. But yet Texas power grid can't hold it. Arizona, 117 for consecutive 30 days. All because we're not doing our part. We're not educating and making sure that individuals have the knowledge to move through these drastic changes. Cultivating wealth and power. Sea captains cruising in Suriname. This painting here by John Glenwood, circa 1752 to 58. Clearly, you see a bunch of individuals living, look like they partying, high off the hog, having a good old time. So the slave trade provided political power, social standing, and wealth for the church, European nation states, New World colonies, and individuals. The previous portrait by John Greenwood connected slavery and privilege through the image of a group of Rhode Island sea captains and merchants drinking at a tavern in the Dutch colony of Suriname, a hub for trade. These men made money by trading the commodity produced by slavery globally among the North American colonies and Caribbean and South American, according to the secure political positions and determine the fate of the nation. The men depicted here include the future governor, Nicole Cook, and Joseph Winton, a Isaac Hopkins, a future commander-in-chief for the Continental Navy, and Stephen Hopkins, who would eventually become one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So here you have, again, individuals who is really benefiting, profiteering, becoming more and more influential, whether it be the political space, whether it be the wealth space. Who is it that's becoming more and more, or who is it that's receiving more and more off of slavery? Because clearly it can't be a slave, someone who's getting whooped, beat. Again, go back to Django. I believe in one of the scenes, a young lady was getting ready to get whooped because she dropped some eggs. Okay? Get whooped because she dropped some eggs. Come on. That's a benefit? Come on. Come on. And as I said, I don't care who said it. I do not care who said what. All I'm thinking about now is that we're having a conversation, talking about something that, again, should we be talking about it? It's okay if it's in an academic setting that we're having the conversation about it, but in the context in which I'm having to bring it to you, I think that we failed somewhere. We failed tremendously. And the only way to correct it is to inform you, get you back into those Books get you back into whether you agree or disagree, but you got to start finding yourselves knowing more. Stop believing what others are telling you and start diving into those research, understanding books so that you can go back to those and say, I'm sorry, but no, mm-mm, can't let you keep doing that. As I said, we got 2.89, whatever, 7, 8, 9 trillion worth of student loans. So you sent people to school and you still think they're stupid. That's the part that gets me. 2.876, again, doesn't matter. It's up there in that trillion area. It's almost $3 trillion of student loan debt, but yet you still keep thinking individuals are stupid. You should be ashamed of yourself, elected officials. You should be ashamed of yourself, academic facilities. Ashamed of yourself. My job, as I stated, correct the record, set the record straight, give you information so that you can go back out into the world and say, whoa, 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 stop for a second. It don't add up. Make it make sense. Because if you can't make it make sense, come on now. Who are you trying to kid? Who are you trying to fool? Who are you trying to pull the wool over their eyes? Because it's not working this way. And as long as I'm on the face of the planet, I'm going to keep doing what I need to do. And it's not just for African-American kids. It's not just for Hispanic kids. It's for those Caucasians. It's for those Middle Eastern. It's for those Asians. If you live in these United States and I have something to do with your academia, you will be educated. It's just that simple. Get involved with my Case to Cause 501c3, Case to Cause 501c3, because of the fact we have to start making them individual cases and start making this a much larger cause, a financial literacy, financial intelligence cause. All you nonprofits out there that are looking for a individual to come within your organizations, there are millions of dollars that philanthropists and companies are giving away. And all I'm asking is that you have some form of a financial literacy component within your nonprofit organization or your for-profit organization. And if you don't, now is the time to get that happening. Let's do what we need to do to make sure that we have the ideal workforce that is educated on what they need to do prior to leaving the preparatory stage of academics, prior to getting out into the real world after they've left the higher education academic understandings. We need to start producing workers that get their financial literacy and their financial intelligence so that they can go into that workspace and start negotiating for wages, fair wages, living wages, wages that are going to get you from where we started to wherever you want to go. But it's going to happen through our knowledge. Knowledge is power. An economy built on slavery. Building a commercial enterprise out of the wilderness requires labor and lots of it. For most of the 1600s, the American colonies operated an agricultural economy driven largely by indentured servants. Most workers were poor, unemployed laborers from Europe who, like others, have traveled to North America for a new life. In exchange for their work, they received food and shelter, a roomity, education, and sometimes a trade. Sometimes a trade. All right. By the 1680s, the Britain colony improved and more jobs became available in Britain. During this time, slavery had become a moral, legal, and socially acceptable institution in the colonies. Again, slavery had become a morally, legally, and socially accepted. Where do you see a benefit? Benefit to those who thought it was moral, benefit to those who thought it was legal, and benefited to those who thought it was socially acceptable. But for that individual who was getting whooped and beat and slapped around and everything else, raped and everything imaginable, that was a benefit. As the number of European laborers coming to the colonies dwindled, enslaving African Americans became more widely acceptable. With ideal climates and available land, property owners in the southern colonies began establishing plantation farms for crop or cash crops like rice, tobacco, sugarcane, enterprises that required increasing amounts of labor. To meet the need, wealthy planters turned to traders who imported even more human to the colonies. The vast majority of West Africans, okay, the vast majority came from West Africa, stolen from their lands. Again, where is there a benefit when you steal from someone? Now, the theft or the individual committing the theft, absolutely, you benefit. But how's the individual that is now being removed, or the item that was theirs is now being taken, how do they benefit? As more enslaved Africans were imported and an upsurge in fertility rates expanded, the inventory, a new industry was born, the slave auction. All right, as I said earlier, we were the first Wall Street blacks. We were the first black commodity. We were one of the first. Wall Street was built off slavery, the understanding of how we, again, traded. It said it right there. Wealthy planters turned to traders. So there's nothing, none of this is new. It's not new, but you need to know about it. What are the three cash crops grown in the Americas? The most lucrative cash crops to emerge from the Americas in the 17th and 18th century was sugar, tobacco, and rice. This little instrument that you see here, this was for cutting and breaking up the sugar cane. All right, that is a sugar cane tool. Cotton agriculture did not become a major feature of the United States South economy until the early 19th century. So there were other crops that we used to use again here that built this nation off of free labor. Free. There's no benefit to anyone who's giving their crafts away for free. None. Economic necessities trumps morality. Many cash crops from tobacco, cotton, and sugarcane. American southern states became the economic engine for the beginning nation. The fuel for choice, human slavery. Their fuel for choice, human slavery. If the Confederacy had been a separate nation, it would have ranked as the fourth richest in the world at the start of the Civil War, all because of human slavery. The slave economy had been very good to Americans' prosperity. Again, Americans. Blacks were not considered or seen as Americans. We were seen as property. By the start of the war, the South was producing 75% of the world's cotton and creating more millionaires per capita in the Mississippi River Valley than anywhere in the nation. So now we can see why this underlining miseducation does happen in the South, and primarily in these regions like Mississippi, North Carolina, West Virginia, South Carolina, huge swaths of individuals that are of the African American race, but yet they have zero say so, zero power. Enslaved workers represented Southern planters' most significant investment, or were their most significant investment, and the bulk of their wealth. All right, the labor. So why do we need to be more educated? Why do we need to have this conversation that we should not be having? Well, you asked for it, folks, because you asked for it. You asked for it. You asked for intellectuals, smart people to literally check you. You put it out there. And as I said, I don't care who. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. I don't care if you're white, black. You used words that were going to incite and get people to get angry, upset, mad, whatever it is that you want it or wanted for the narrative. I'm not going to give you that. That's not my job. My job is not to go back and forth with you over your stupidity. My job is to correct what I need to correct for my people to make sure that they understand. Don't go back and forth with a fool, because a passerby may not know which one of you is actually the fool. But you will now start challenging these individuals on their misuse of our history. Just that simple. You will, from this point on, challenge these individuals of their misuse of our history, because it is no mystery. But you asked for it. How does this all tie into credit? How does this all get you now to understand? How does this make you wealthy, rich, poor? How does this help with getting that ladder of prosperity back, or getting you back on that footing to that understanding of prosperity? So let me show you. All right, let's take a look real quick at the stock ownership by race. Okay. Ownership by race. Stock ownership by rate. 1983, 96.2%. Look at this. 2022, fourth quarter. Dropped some. That because obviously rich people equally, they don't care about their poor white folk. Poor white people who you think Trump and all of those that you are claiming they rah, 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 shish, boom, bah. They don't care about you either. Billionaires talk to billionaires. Millionaires talk to millionaires. Thousandaires, 100,000aires, 10,000aires. Again, there's category for each one of us. And if you're not in that lane, you're not in that space, they don't care about you. Again, stocks owned by race, 96.2%. That means that some of them have fallen off. Fall off for bad investments, fall off for a variety of reasons. But look at the black and the Hispanic. 0.8. There's our problem. How does this tie in? Well, we grew up slaves. We grew up misinformed. We grew up scared. We grew up with all of the deficiencies, and we didn't have the proper understanding of our financial literacy or intelligence to actually move the needle. Well, we did, if you go to here to the 2023, but what is a 0.3% improvement? Some 20 years later, 19 years later, a 0.3% improvement. Ooh, oh my goodness. Wow, we are so coming up. I feel the Georgian Wheezy coming on. Hispanics, they dropped. Because we're having conversations that are irrelevant to what we should be talking about. How do we build a nation versus how do we destroy one? Because we are one election cycle away from a democracy or an autocracy. You see it right in front of you, clear as day. Unequal initial wealth, unequal wealth accumulation. It's just that simple. Unequal initial wealth, unequal wealth accumulation. Check out some of these numbers. Income inequality in the United States. 1950, 15% of Americans income went to the nation's richest 1%. And all that did is keep increasing over time. 2018, 18%. The top in 1918, my apologies, 1925, top rate fell to 25 on income over 100,000. Look at 1944, top marginal tax rate was 94%. We go back to that, we can start initiating some great new programs. Now everybody can talk about, oh, why you're gonna tax a billionaire or a millionaire at 94%? You got to remember something. These individuals are smart. They have tax people. They have accountants. They have record keepers. They have all of the tools needed to take that 94% and chunk it all the way down to 30. What's so important about that understanding is that this is where they are now. They're at 28 to 37. The tax rate, or excuse me, the tax responsibility that a billionaire pays is 0.03. 0.03. We are going to have to decide what type of country we want. Do we want a country that is just haves and have-nots, or do we want to have a nice progressional understanding of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? But this right here explains it all. Very, very simple, very, very easy to decipher. Nothing that's is challenging or questioning that you have to go back to and become an economist. I'm not an economist. I'm just someone who loves the conversation of information and how accurate those of us choose to give you what is going to help you. And I'm all about helping you. Unlike those who are out there all about self. Here's another one. Take a look at this. The 30 years following the emancipation saw a rapid narrowing of the racial wealth gap, falling from a ratio of 56 to 1 in the 1860 era. The eve of the Civil War, 23 to 1. In 1980, following the emancipation, 11 to 1 in the 1900s. All right, so we have seen some closing of that gap, but it seems like it's getting larger and larger and larger and larger and larger and larger as we move forward. The post-Civil War saw the fastest period of wealth convergence for about 2.5 a year. Passive areas to Black American economics participated slowed the convergence. And as you can see, it just kept going down. That gap just started getting smaller, and then it started getting larger. What do you want to do? We can keep having conversations about things that we should not be having conversations about, or we can start having conversations about things that we should be having conversations about. And this is one of those things that we should be having conversations about the wealth gap, about why trillions trickle up and not this so-called theory that they had, which was trickle-down economics. Because the trickling up trillions is definitely happening. And I want you to pay attention to this sliver right here. This sliver, I'm going to slide all the way across. That sliver right there. That sliver, this little piece right there. That represents 50%, the bottom 50%. This little sliver, I'm going to go across it again. This little sliver right there. That represents the bottom 50%. The bottom 50%, again, wealth held by each income group. This is what's in that hand of the bottom 50%, $2.3 billion. $2.3 billion. 51 to 90 percentile. That's this little chunk, this little big sliver right here. Nice little sliver. They hold on to roughly about $40 billion. Again, this is wealth in the hands. And look at, obviously, the top earners. Okay, how'd they get there? Free labor, all kinds of shenanigans, avoiding taxes, doing everything that they possibly can to create as much wealth that they have now combined in hand. Upwards of $110 trillion. Okay, there was no trickle down because you have, and I've explained it before. You got your champagne glass, you got your nice tower, and that one person is pouring, so the cascading of is pouring so nicely, it looks so beautiful. But that top guy said, "Well, hold on a second, I should be getting more." So what they did is they took their champagne glass and they decided to put a cup underneath that champagne glass. So as it was still pouring, their cup got full, or shall we say, champagne glass got full, cup got full, then again, more cascading. But then that top percent said again, I'm still not enough. Not enough for me. So now they got champagne glass, they got cup, and then they went and got a bucket. Now imagine each level doing the exact same thing. You got your first, you got your second, you got your third, you got your fourth. So where does the trickle down start to trickle down? It doesn't trickle down. You get little sprinkles that happen to, oh, got a lot going in, so you're going to get a sprinkle that falls over here. Or you're going to get a sprinkle that falls over there. Trillions trickle up. They don't trickle down. Trickle down economics was a farce. It was a lie. Just like just about everything that goes on in this country. Both parties are to blame. Democrats as well as Republicans. Republicans are clearly overtly don't care. They'll tell it to you right to your face. They may even accidentally but purposely call you the N-word if they could get away with it. Democrats, you're just horrible at messaging. You can't whoop your way out of a wet paper bag, but yet you come to the fight all the time with a butter knife. Now, butter knife means intention, but you come to the fight all the time slap boxing while the Republicans are throwing haymakers because you keep calling these individuals your dear colleagues. They're not your dear colleagues. They're not even your friends. We don't want to hear behind your closed door types of conversation where you're getting along and then in public you can't get along. You don't have friends like that. Because with friends like that, who needs enemies? So Democrats are horrible at messaging. Republicans could care less about anyone who's not ideally in line with their brand of politics, which is to demean anyone who is not of the same mindset. Primarily billionaires, millionaires. If you are lesser than, you're supporting a cause that could care less about you. But that's just me. All right, let's take a little bit more at the wealth distribution. Again, look at this little sliver. Now, it was a little bit more over here, so it was probably up to 2 or 3, but look at it over time. The bottom 50%. You have no wealth, but yet you want to still keep supporting those who don't agree and don't believe that you should be able to create wealth. They don't want to know they don't want you to know your history. They don't want to give you the education financially. They don't want to support you when you have or bring new life into the world. They want to keep guns out there so they can have you keep slaughtering each other. They want to dope you down. Everything that they possibly can do to you, they're doing it and you're accepting it. Because it's all about power, greed, and control. Power, greed, and control. You're going to have to decide, America. You're going to have to decide. Because I've already made the decision for me. I'm asking you. Did enslavement benefit Black people? Because clearly, by this one understanding that I'm giving you right there, enslavement did not benefit Black people, nor did it benefit slaves. Get your facts right, get your education right, get your history right, or there's going to be people, and I'm hoping more and more people like me start getting in front of their video recording devices and start putting out the truth about why we cannot continue to allow academic facilities or even those who are in elected positions to keep throwing out this garbage. So, if you have a 4th grader, there you have it right there. All right, Duckster, Go to Ducksters. If you are unsure about what is and how this was to be, whether you agree with how they put the context together or not, but I think you might want to go back and get the basics about democracy, the basics about checks and balance, the basics about the elective branches, legislative branches, judicial branches, the basics about the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth amendments, the Constitution, Bill of Rights. Get the basics so that you can have a decent conversation. Understand what your state and local government is supposed to or are supposed to do. Understand why we have interest groups and how they influence our politicians. You're going to have to start somewhere, so I'm giving you the starting point. And last but not least, everybody, it's always a pleasure doing what I do. I love this. It's super important. And I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity today to really step outside, but also bring it back together. Because financial literacy, financial intelligence equally is important as our history. Our civics, our Black history, our American history is all important. That what we know will only enhance and allow for us to improve upon our experiment. We are still in an experimental phase when it comes to the United States of America. And in order for us to be a true democracy, we're going to have to get back to what the forefathers more or less has instilled. They gave us the Constitution. Prior to that, and I'm going to leave you with this, the reason why we have 17,000 pages of law books is because we could not adhere to 10 items on a stone tablet. My name is Tyrone Glover. I can be reached here at 805-428-9424. My email is leveragecreditrecovery@gmail.com. Please join me on Linktree, Leverage Credit Recovery. That's where you will find my a lot of great resources, tools, things of that nature. I want to thank you for giving me the pleasure of your afternoon. Again, my name is Tyrone Glover. I am the Dress Down CEO of Leverage Credit Recovery. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday. And if you happen to be in the area, please stop by the Yonkers Public Library here on Larkin Plaza, where I host a Talk Finance with an Expert every Saturday at 12 noon at Yonkers Public Library. Thank you, Soul City Network. Thank you to all the affiliates. Thank you to the public for tuning in today. I want to wish you safe travels, and I look forward to seeing you back here next Tuesday as we cover some more important understandings about your financial literacy and your financial intelligence. This is a necessary conversation, and it will continue. Stay safe, America.